Hi, I'm Trevor.
I'm Vincent.
We're the Anthony and Todd Show. Today we're going to be taking a look at Father John Misty's latest record, God's Favorite Customer. Father John Misty is an American singer-songwriter. He has multiple albums out under the name J. Tillman, produced for a lot of popular records by artists like Beyonce or Kid Cudi. And then he kind of switched up his moniker a little bit in like 2012. He started going by the name Father John Misty. He has 4 albums under that moniker. The last one being last year's Pure Comedy, of which I do not care for and Vincent loves. And then, most importantly for me, 2013's I Love You Honey Bear, which is superior. Yes, it is. But like I said, today we're going to be taking a look at his latest album, where he kind of
It doesn't focus on like a particular topic.
No, but I feel like it kind of carries on a little bit of like what Pure Comedy was trying to say
at points,
and goes on with that beyond that subject.
But I think this album is immensely more about himself than anything else. Not that it's a bad thing, but it revolves more around kind of like the psyche of him and kind of like issues he's going through at this time.
No, which is that's what I wanted him to do, because I feel like that's what I Love You Honey Bear was all about, is personal stories about him and love and, you know, romance in the roles that it plays in his life. But this album, I feel like Pure Comedy was very overarching. It wasn't about him. It was about a general idea of humanity. And sometimes I feel like here we are flying at 500 feet with I Love You Honey Bear, and then we just skyrocket up to like 16 quadrillion feet for Pure Comedy. And I feel like now we're kind of swooping back down to get more personal with Josh Tillman here.
But Pure Comedy was also one of his most kind of like minimal albums, but it was also one of his grandest at the same time. There wasn't a lot going on production-wise, because it gave this like sense of dread throughout the entire album, because that's what the album's about, with humanity and all its faults that it's going through. And I think it worked on this, but I think Father John Misty kind of goes for some of the same stylings production-wise on this album, at least towards the tail end. And I don't think they work as well, because it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to do with like the fall of humanity, and doesn't really have to do it with this dread as much. And I think sometimes when this album takes itself slower, there's not really a point that really backs it up, and it's too slow on this.
100% agree.
While I do love Pure Comedy, I think still has a lot of good moments of songwriting ability throughout, but I think the biggest problem with this is that the fact that I think the layout of this is shit. Like, it's not that good. Like, the layout is the worst problem, because like you get into Hangout at the Gallows, which is very similar to Pure Comedy.
It's like picking up where we left off,
which I enjoyed, and I think it has a lot to do with kind of his almost headspace of him wanting to be in this like place where it's almost very reckless for him to be in this headspace, or being near death almost, in this sort of kind of depression filled headspace. And it has the same production that was on some of the better moments of Pure Comedy, and I was totally fine with this. And then you go to while the subject matter is pretty bleak throughout this entire album, I think you go to a more upbeat, at least production-wise, track of Mr. Tillman, which I think
it's funny too.
It is a great track, which talks about kind of the recklessness that Josh Tillman is going through, his kind of like asshole persona that he proves off as this concierge, front desk man, whatever.
Yeah, he's almost like checking into a hotel, and the front desk guy is like talking to him about, like, you know, what he could do and what he can't. They're like, all right, no more getting your mattress wet anymore, you know, no more like walking around in the rain. They're like, how many times do we have to tell you these are not movie extras, they're just people? Like, just like, I don't know, all sorts of like random lines, I think, littered throughout this song, and I think it's just absolutely hysterical. The first time I heard this track, I was just laughing so hard because I thought it was so funny.
It's a really good track that kind of is humorous, but also has this like dark tone to it, which I think Father John Misty works with really well.
Yeah.
And then you get back into another really slow moment with Just Dumb Enough to Try. Like, we're going on this weird like emotional roller coaster, at least stylistically, where Father John Misty is talking about kind of how love, at least to me, how love works. You think you're really good, but you have to kind of put yourself in this weird headspace to be in a relationship with how to put up with people or how to interact with people. in that kind of form and like setting yourself up for love, it is this huge daunting task where you may be good at other things, you may be good at like music, but you're not good at kind of being in a relationship. I think that's how
there's no way to like train for that, basically.
And I think lyrically, again, it's good, but it completely switches up production wise what we just had, and now I'm just like, we were here, now we're here, like what emotional culture. And then you go to Date Night, which production wise back up again. But it's also one of the weaker songs on here. I love the productions on the track because it is some, I love when like Father John Misty uses more upbeat production because it provides a thing we haven't really seen him do as much, especially after Pure Comedy, which was just a slow moving album for at least like half of it. The beginning was a little bit more upbeat, but that end was a very slow crawl that was bringing along this dread with it. Whereas Date Night, I think it's just Kanye. It's Father John talking about kind of being like a drifter or like a kind of like a, what is the term?
It's a free spirit.
Free spirit, and there's nothing more I could really like grab from that, and it's almost one of his like weaker tracks. While I do like the performance Father John gives, and I like the production that follows suit, I don't really think he has much to say about the track, and it's almost kind of this like half-made narrative. After that, you go back down with Disappointing Diamonds. It's
Please Don't Die.
Oh, is it Please Don't Die?
Please Don't Die is after that, which is true. Goes back down where he's talking about how somebody is his everything.
No, it's the view from the view from his wife.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
At least that's how I interpreted it, because it makes sense for her to talk about Father John Misty than for Father John Misty to talk about her. At least that's how I interpret it. I could be wrong.
I interpreted it as him talking about his wife being like one of the only people that can understand him or even like just put up with his asshole behavior. Because like most people like don't put up with that kind of thing. If somebody's an asshole, like you don't want to be around them. But like obviously he's married and his wife like puts up with him, and I think Father John Misty is very self-aware of that personality that he puts on, and he's talked about it multiple times, like I'm not going to stop being the way that I am, and he's like not even making attempts to get better or being a nicer person, and his wife puts up with that, continually puts up with that, and I feel like he is talking about how if she's dead or if she's gone, then he's not going to have anybody that like will put up with him. He's not going to have any friends. He's not going to have any like connections with anybody, because like that's what his wife is there for.
I think the track is like one of the best written on the album, and I think
I enjoyed
works
it a lot
as an album. I love the music video for it that has a bunch of stop motion animation that I think is great, and it kind of puts into isolation place that Father John is in at the time. This one of the factors of the album, which I forgot to mention, is that it kind of is reminiscent of this hotel stay that he had that lasted around 2 months, where he felt really where he was kind of isolated. It wasn't really around his wife. Was kind of in this hotel room. Didn't really need to take care of himself. Was in this like weird depressive state, which he didn't really have to take care of anything. And I think that comes through especially in the track Palace, which follows Please Don't Die, where he's essentially talking about him being in this place. He mentions like wanting to take care of a pet because maybe it will teach him responsibility, but he thinks first that he actually has to stop being waited on by all these people and kind of grow up.
He doesn't want to leave the palace. He keeps talking about, which is I think like very reminiscent of that hotel. He doesn't want to leave the hotel room because everything's just taken care of there.
Yeah, and I think I think the flow wise, I'm like, okay, maybe we'll get some stability because I think it really matches Please Don't Die, and then we go back up a little bit with Disappointing Diamonds or the Rarest to Find, which is kind of talking about how in a relationship, like the best relationship is one where someone is willing to acknowledge that like the relationship is like mundane, like mundanity in the relationship. It should be like acknowledged. Like it isn't going to be this perfect like love story. It's going to be more of this kind of like everyday grime than anything else. You're going to just kind of have to put up with the other person or have the other person put up with your BS, and it's not going to be this like perfect thing where you love each other. Well, you may love each other forever. You're not going to be constantly in love with each other. There are going to be moments when you fight or moments where it's just super boring and there's nothing interesting going to go on, and you're not like hand over heels or whatever. Hands over heels?
Head over heels.
Head over heels. That's what it is. I don't know shit. But I think it works really well. I love the performance on it. It's one of the more upbeat moments on the entire album, but then you immediately go back down to God's Favorite Customer, which is when this album like kind of takes a halt, in my opinion. I think production-wise, at least, I think there is some good songwriting on this track, because I think God's Favorite Customer is like one of the... Like, it's just bland. There's nothing for me to grab at. I love the performance that Wise Blood brings to the table.
It's also a super long track. It's the longest track on here.
And I don't see the purpose. It didn't do anything for me songwriting wise. It presented a view of Father John Misty, and I read somewhere about it. It kind of has to do with a time period where he kind of wanted to be like a youth minister, and he would call himself God's favorite customer. But he also another description of that was, I want to be a youth minister for a while. Then I remembered I don't believe in God, and I hate children. Like, I thought that was really funny, but like that has nothing to do with this track. Like, other than some outside information I read, I really couldn't dissect really what was happening.
Yeah.
And I just thought it to be like a really slow crawl that didn't have...
It wasn't satisfying. Nothing happened.
Yeah, like, it just kind of just slowly goes through. It reminds me of some of the production on Pure Comedy a lot, like, especially towards the very end, but there's no, like, redeeming quality about it, except for maybe some, like, vocal performances from Wiseblood, which I think were really nice. But her performance is kind of just, like, background vocals and nothing more than that. Going on to the songwriter, which is, I honestly really enjoyed. I think the lyricism behind it's really strong. Father John Misty taking like almost having to imagine what would happen if the roles were reversed, if he had to put up with his wife's shit and she was the songwriter, which I thought was really cool, because it kind of has him empathize, which I thought was very nice, and it made him take an have an out of body experience by going and switching these roles, which I thought was really cool.
I wouldn't even call it an out-of-body experience, because I feel like I don't particularly like this track, because I think it's an interesting concept. I just think that it wasn't as well executed as it could have been. But I also think that, like, Josh Tillman writing about this concept and talking about, like, what if my wife was a songwriter and I wasn't? And he's like, that's good basis for a song. He's like, I'm having an out-of-body experience. If that's having an out-of-body experience with somebody, empathizing with somebody is like a rare occasion for you, then you're just like truly the definition of an asshole. In all honesty, seriously, like, I just think that Father John Misty is becoming a more and more unlikable character for me as he starts to show his true colors in his music. I think that the songwriter is just the apex of that I've seen, like, in all that I've seen of, like, Pure Comedy. And I mean, you know how I feel about that album, pretentious, asshole-ish, whatever, however you want to call it. I think that the songwriter is just the complete, like I said, just like the tip top of how much of an asshole can Father John Misty be, where he says, switching lives with my wife, or like, wondering, what if I had to put up with my wife's bullshit? Like, what if I had to be in my wife's position? Like, putting yourself in somebody's shoes is something that you should do, like, on an everyday basis. But the fact that he's writing a song about it like it's something special just shows me, like, how much of an asshole he truly is.
Which is followed up by We're Only People, which is just, it's just a cut from Pure Comedy. Like, and it's not, here's the thing, it's like, it's already covered topics. Like, there's nothing new here. Like, this was the end of Pure Comedy. It was that, just like, in the end, life's just nothing.
For me, I honestly wish he would have ended it at either Disappointing Diamonds or The Palace and had Disappointing Diamonds somewhere else. Like, I literally just think that the last 3 tracks could be cut and this album would increase. In my eyes, at least. Just at that point, it just became like a non-enjoyable listen. It was just this slow burn of like 15 minutes of stuff I didn't enjoy.
Like, We're Only People, it's just so slow. Like, he repeats himself of stuff he's already said. I don't see the point, and it is one of the slower moving tracks, and it guess you can say the production kind of, again, brings this like feel of like dread, but it's not needed. Like, we've been through this, we've had an entire album's worth of this. Unless you're going to present us new ideas or new topics or new perspectives, don't. This is a B-side.
It's almost like he didn't like know where to end the album, and he was like, "Oh, you guys liked Pure Comedy, right? Here's a cut from that, and then we'll just call it a day because you guys will like this track if you liked everything on that album."
It doesn't make any sense. Like, why is this here? Because for most of the album, it's been more about Josh Tillman, and it hasn't been about like the grander scheme of things and how everything relates. And when you end with that, it's just weird. It is very a strange note. It's almost like we were kind of like on ground level, and as you said, we kind of took like a spaceship and we went back up here. Like it doesn't make any sense why you would end with that. And it slows, like the last 3 tracks slow this album to the halt, even though I do like the songwriter lyrically. I think the production backing it isn't that special. I think this album, it still has elements of really good songwriting, but the layout and just the last 3 songs kind of slow everything down. I think Josh Tillman's performance over this is really good, and I think he does a good job of like attempting to mesh everything together, at least after finishing an album like this quickly, trying to assemble another album that was a little bit more personal, maybe, even though it didn't really have a center theme, but at least something more general or something like that.
Yeah.
And in the end, he kind of made an album that was really personal, that kind of had these like periods where it would just like go off and not really have any point back to him, or at least reconnect back to him.
Yeah.
In the end, I'm feeling like an 8 almost. I'm gonna give this like an 8 out of 10. I think I really enjoy moments on this. I really love Mr. Tillman, and I really enjoy like the Palace. I think those are like 2 incredible moments on this. And but I think there's just like the end is just so slow. It kind of is all over the place. The layout's not that good. Actually, I'm gonna give this an 8.2. It reminds me a lot of Damn. That's what I'm gonna do. Give it an 8.2 because that's what I give Damn. I think it's very comparable to that.
I'm gonna give this a 7 just because like there just were some tracks that I didn't quite enjoy. And like I said, like when your album I think was very much so like a roller coaster, you know, we're talking about Hangout at the Gallows, Mr. Tillman, we're down, we're up, we're down, we're up, we're down. And then just like I was talking about, like the last 15 minutes is just so slow. It's such a crawl. It's like slogging through a swamp. You know, it's stuff that I don't particularly enjoy, stuff I don't want to listen to. Like, why would I enjoy, you know, why would I want to wait through the rest of this album? Why would I want to wait through about 15 minutes of just a musical idea or lyrical ideas that I just, like, don't like? Couple that with the fact that I think Father John is just becoming, like, somebody I don't particularly, like, want to... He's just not a likable guy. And not in the way that, like, Krusty the Clown is an unlikable guy, like, character.
You just don't see any depth in him.
No, I don't think there's any depth because he's not willing to change. And I think on I Love You Honey Bear, there's a lot of depth to him, and I think that like going in that's why I like that album so much, because he's talking about things that are personal to him, but also the way that he would change for his wife or change for that relationship. Pure Comedy, we don't see the change. He's very flat.
Well, Pure Comedy really isn't about.
No, but here, even when he gets personal again, he's still in that kind of like flat sense. He just doesn't change, and he says, I'm an asshole, deal with it.
An observational stance, that's what you're saying. It isn't about how I'm going to fix this. It is, here's what's wrong with my life.
Yeah, it's all complaining, no change.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just don't enjoy that type of characterization. I don't enjoy that type of music or songwriting. If you're an asshole, go out and fix it. But he just like doesn't want to try. I don't know. It just comes off as like a lazy songwriter, or even lazy like characterization. But except for he's not a character, he's just a real person.
But I honestly do respect your songwriting on this. Even though I do not agree with the production, I think the songwriter is actually really.
Oh yeah, I think there is. I think there's good songwriting. I think Hangout at the Gallows is good.
Yeah.
I think Mr. Tillman is good. I think Please Don't Die is really interesting and a well explored track. But like I said, just like the things that I'm focusing on and the things that I took away from this album is just the parts I didn't enjoy. Which like I think I'm capable of realizing that there are parts I enjoy. You know, I still give it a 7. I still think there are a lot of redeemable parts on this album, and it's definitely nowhere near like Pure Comedy for me. But it's also miles away from I Love You Honey Bear as well.
So yeah, those are our thoughts on God's Favorite Customer. If you want to hear us talk about music more, we have a weekly podcast called The Anthony and Todd Show. It's on Apple Music and Spotify. Links down in the description. If you want to hear us review more albums, we recently just reviewed Kanye West, Ye, and a plethora of other albums that you can find on our YouTube channel. But until next time, guys, I've been Vincent.
I'm Trevor.
And see ya, boyos.
See ya.